Hello and welcome to Cherries Red Army. This is Cherries in Focus, episode 13. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're having a fantastic week. I've got Jon and Steve with me on this one. And of course, we are live and interactive on YouTube for this one. If you're listening back on the podcast, thank you very much. Thanks for supporting that platform, and do what you need to do to support it and help it grow. Follow, rate it, something like that. Just do what you got to do on the podcast. We have got lots of stuff to discuss tonight. We know that we didn't have another great weekend in the Premier League. We know an international break is ahead of us, but we want to get your thoughts in the chat. So I am going to pop into the chat this evening because I'm going to point out some of your questions. If you have any, what you're thinking, are you still back in Andoni? Are you ready to change things? Surely not. Hang in there. I'm sure everything will be fine. But we are getting closer to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. Do hit the like button right now to support this video. And if you're watching this back on replay, do please use the comments. Right, Jon, Steve. Actually, how I want to start this, guys, is the last episode. It was a tough watch because we're really trying to get that first win, and it's been a tough watch on the pitch, guys. So a few comments in there were like, oh, it's a little bit negative at times, but unfortunately, it's going to be negative when you're not playing great football. So, Jon, I do want to try and start this video a little bit positively. I don't care what it is, but I would like you to give me something positive from the weekend to now. Give me something to start nicely on this stream.
Okay. Well, I guess on a personal note, one of my bets came in, so I made a bit of money last weekend. There's something for you. But I suppose in the game, kick my camera. In the game, I do think Tavernier was a positive of a player that hasn't shown us what he can do since coming back from injury until this most recent game, when a lot was going wrong around him. He was a player that looked like he really was trying and looked like he was getting back to some of his best in terms of dribbling past players and really helping make us tick. It's a good thing he was trying, because if he wasn't, it could have been an even more unbearable watch, having gone to the game myself. But yeah, Steve, what's your positive thing?
I don't know, you've just stolen it. That was the only positive thing. So on a personal note, I don't know if many people know, I've been sort of suffering with a slip disc for quite a while now, and I made my long-awaited return to knocking a ball around on a Sunday evening. So that was good for me. A couple of goals as well. In fact, all the Hensmans won this weekend, which was good after the Saturday I'd had. I suppose my positive from the trip to Everton was, for me, I'd never been there before, so it was great to see one of the old ladies of English football, as in stadium wise, and it was a bit of a trip down memory lane. Shall we say that? Because there's some unusual quirks I haven't seen for a long time in that stadium. So yeah, it was good fun to sort of get a good look at Goodison before it goes. But unfortunately, that's where my my good stuff ends, I'm afraid.
And the AFC Bournemouth women's team won. Jon, you picked that
Yes,
out
they did.
before we went on air and said that's a positive. We did get a Cherries win at the weekend, didn't you, Jon?
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, it was a come-from-behind win where I think it was 3-1.
Yeah.
So we finally got a 3-1 win somewhere along the line, Sammy. It's not the one we wanted, but it's the one we got, and it's still a positive for the club.
Another little positive here, more for the channel, but a good opportunity while we're talking about some positives before we get into that Everton game last weekend, is the monthly members. We are adding to it. You are supporting the channel. You're backing us through this tough moment that we're having at the start of the season. Mark Davis became our latest monthly member. Sean Woodland joined a few weeks ago. We've also had some donations from Liam Humby and all you fantastic monthly members. Some of you been there from the start. Get it in nice and early on this stream. Thank you so much. You can support the channel at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. You're just amazing, and we thank you, and it gives us the boost we need to keep coming back, driving on, and helping our football team get out of that relegation. So right, let's get on with it then, because I do want to jump into the chat this evening. It was Everton 3, Bournemouth 0 at Goodison Park, their first home win of the season. They don't score many goals there, but they did get 3. It was littered with mistakes. So the theme is continuing from episode 12. We don't normally go through Cherries in Focus, Steve, chronologically, but I do want to look at a couple of the goals. I think the third one going really ahead probably shouldn't have got that far. It was probably a foul on Adam Smith, but let's reverse back to the first one. It was early on that they scored. Sabani slips, gives the ball away deep in our own half. The big thing for me here, and we spoke about it on episode 12, was where is Philip Billing going to start? Was he going to play higher up? And the closest player to Sabani was Philip Billing. He tried to retain the ball, lost it, and they broke on us, and they scored a good goal. 1-0 down early on. But again, another mistake.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking off air about what we were doing in the first sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes. And it just seemed that we were sort of playing the ball around at the back, trying to keep hold of possession, looking for those opportunities to go forward. And they just didn't seem to be much from midfield dropping in and trying and wanting to receive the ball, get on the ball. And then the responsibility kind of was left to the centre backs. And then when they couldn't find anything, it was just sort of hitting long diagonal balls to Dango. Who really, I mean, we pointed it out. He got 1-on-1 with Ashley Young, wasn't it? Quite early on, got him booked, and me and John said at the time, because we was both there at the game, and John made the point actually that he should have. If he'd gone at him again, you almost want to target him, but we didn't do that. And unfortunately, like I say, those midfielders weren't dropping in and wanting to receive the ball seemingly, especially Lewis Cook. I didn't see. Billing was trying it, and obviously, like you said, he was in the vicinity. But it's an unfortunate slip at the end of the day. It's just Zabani goes past his man, which he does quite regularly. He tries to change the direction, he just loses his footing. And that's just put us backs against the wall straight away. We're a centre back out of the frame. Philip Billing tries to lunge and try and nick the ball off Garner, doesn't make it, and it's through. And he's just got to bend it round Lewis Cook, who he uses as a bit of a shield. And I mean, the shot's quite central, really, but because he bends it round Cook, Neto doesn't really get a good look at it, and he's left rounder in. So it is a bad mistake. Well, it's not a bad mistake; it's an unfortunate mistake. But it's just where we are at the moment. Those sort of things keep happening to us. It's how do we go about eradicating them? But I do feel there's too much onus on the centre backs and or defences, to find that sort of killer ball. And rather than someone coming in and trying to receive the ball, who's got more natural ball control, more skill, more drive. Lewis Cook is excellent at doing it. I think Rothwell's excellent at doing it. And I think we've said many times, if those two get on the ball and turn, they're neat and tidy. They can turn on the ball, drive forward. Lewis Cook likes that quarterback type of role. He can ping balls out. I think there's too much onus on the centre backs and the back four as a whole to be looking for killer passes. And if they're not there, we get ourselves into trouble like we proved on Saturday.
Yeah, John, errors leading to goals, 5 from us, and we are joint leaders of that alongside Burnley, where we're helping teams score easier goals, whatever you want to call it. So errors leading to shots we're not doing very well with at the moment. I know you were at the game. I couldn't make it. I was there back in May for the final game of the season last season. And I know you were there, and I've watched a couple of content that you've been on. I know back of the net had a match day vlog, and I saw the second goal. And I've not criticised, but I've had my concerns about Neto this season. I think he doesn't catch enough. And correct me if I'm wrong, John, but you actually don't think he was at fault for this second goal. I actually think there's a phase before the second phase where he can catch it. The ball comes back in, and then it's where he goes to punch the second time when it lands to Harrison. Then it's harder to catch. But isn't there an earlier catch before that one?
I'd need to watch it back, to be honest. I haven't had the courage to look back at the highlights as of yet. Because
were there any?
Experiencing it once is was painful enough. But from my memory, I do remember. Well, the whole reason why the goal sort of comes from the phase that it does is because the ball gets swung back in by, I think it was Mikolenko. into the box from sort of, the inside left channel. And at the decision that I think Neto makes for that cross, I think is fair. I think he gives it a decent punch, but he's clattered by Smith, who's being pressured. I think it was Smith. It might have been Senesi.
I think it was Senesi, yeah.
It was probably Senesi, given the angle. But he gets clattered by Senesi, being under pressure from whichever Everton players on his back. And as a result, the punch doesn't necessarily go high, and it goes, unfortunately, lands perfectly at Harrison's feet, who takes a first-time finish, which is sublime. It's like, really, like, even if you could say that a player should have been closer to Harrison, yes, maybe, but it's still an incredible finish. But a player doesn't get out to Mikolenko. It's something that Bournemouth have been horrible at for about a decade, is preventing crosses from getting into the box in the first place. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was an instance before that, because obviously the ball gets to Mikolenko at left back before then, and I would imagine that he probably could have done more with it. I do think that it's just sort of part of the game now. Like, yes, obviously a lot of keepers do still catch, but I do feel as though there was sort of like an agreement went around goalkeeping coaching circles about a decade ago, and went, look, if the keeper drops the ball, he leaves a tap in for a striker. So why don't you just always punch it? And therefore, you're always going to put the ball about 25 yards out, and it'll be less likely they score. Neto is starting to get massive questions about him from the fan base, from certainly a lot of the voices that were around me, and he just doesn't feel like he's got the presence that he had last year. And bear in mind, when a lot of people were not focusing on him, he made quite a few mistakes last year, but none of them ever resulted in a goal against us. And that's where we got our luck last year, I think, a lot of it. This year, most of the mistakes he makes are so much more noticeable because the team as a whole around him is not performing well enough. And I do feel as though there is going to be growing calls around the fan base just to drop him, because they're getting a bit fed up. And Radu, having seen having watched the goalkeepers in their warm-up before the game, Radu catches. Neto punches when he's practicing. So I do think that if you really want the goalkeeper to come and claim things in the box, people need to keep calling for Radu to play instead. But I don't know. It's a tough one.
Can I just pick up on that? Is that I know what John's saying about the sort of trend of goalkeepers coming and punching rather than catching, because if you mess it up a catch, you're leaving a tap in for the striker. But in my head, that it's far easier to come and catch a ball than it is to try and punch a moving ball. In my mind, and okay, you might mess it up, but a decent goalkeeper should be good enough to, with both hands, catch a ball. So yeah, I think that's one of those things. To me, it's a bit of a myth. I get the angle of, if you do punch it, it's far away from the goal. But equally, I've seen goalkeepers punch balls into their own net. For goodness sake, I mean, it's that sort of thing. It's a caveat to that. And the other thing on Neto's decision on punching everything, it doesn't seem to. If I don't ever hear him come out and shout, "Goal, keeper's ball." Like the thing with Senesi, he's coming into chat. If he calls and is really confident and calls and jumps and wins that ball, Senesi's not going to go in with it. It just seems to be no confidence in any of them at the moment. There's no coordination. There doesn't seem to be a voice, and unfortunately, he is the voice of the team, supposedly. So that's my concern, is that he doesn't. It's that command thing: command his area, command his box. I just don't. If he's commanding his box, Senesi knows he's coming for that, and you don't get that mix up.
And it's for me that I said this at the start of the season. I didn't think it was a priority to go and find or spend 20-30 million pounds on a goalkeeper. I think we're still holding on to potentially Mark Travers being that goalkeeper, and we'll find out in the next 12 months. When you're defending poorly, like we have been, and I still think there's a defender in Sabani. I think Senesi's gone backwards a little bit. We know that Lloyd Kelly's probably our strongest centre-back right now. But when you haven't got those defenders, and Chris Mepham's not fit, and he's been good for us previously, when you're really struggling to defend, you need a goalkeeper that's just going to relieve a little bit of pressure. And I don't think Neto does that. In Jon's defence, even when you're at the stadium, sometimes you can miss a phase. I know that when I watch the extended highlights, for me, Neto can catch the first phase. When it comes in the second time, it's a little bit harder. Credit to Harrison when it gets to him. He does what he needs to do. Omid says, Neto doesn't command his area, rarely comes out of his box and barely uses his feet to save, although he did make a save on Saturday for the first time with his feet. Backs that up with saying, give Radu a chance. The problem I have now, guys, is I don't think Radu's an upgrade. It's not like we went from Travers to Neto after Liverpool and you felt like, okay, give Travers a day off, let him have a bit of a breather, and Neto got a clean sheet and sort of didn't allow him to come back in the side. I've seen Radu once. I've seen him in warm-up. Steve's seen him at Swansea. I don't see a goalkeeper that's much better. And I'm not trying to be harsh on Radu because he's probably not had a real chance, John. But it's another goalkeeper that through his career so far, he's been a number 2.
Yeah, and if you were to ask an Italian football correspondent what their abiding memory of Radu is, it would be a really bad mistake he made as Inter's goalkeeper, but basically cost Inter the title a couple of years ago. Now, admittedly, that was him playing with his feet, and he's clearly not as capable with his feet. But then I'd say Neto isn't either. Neto's distribution, when initially last season I found Neto above Travers as an upgrade because of his distribution, that wasn't exceptional by any means, but he wasn't misplacing quite the volume of passes that Travers was. Neto's kicking has just taken an absolute nosedive in finding teammates. And you mentioned it as well, Kirk, is that as much as I sort of make excuses for him punching, when you're a team that's on the back foot a lot, when a keeper claims the ball, all of the pressure goes because everything resets. The entire worry of the situation has just been completely washed away. You get to reset, you get to reform, you then get to implement the tactics properly of the manager, who then wants to be able to, from what he knows, he can always say that whenever the keeper's in his hands, all the players stand here and we do this. If he keeps punching it, he can't do that. As for what Radu is, I mean, the League Cup games are the only games I haven't seen this season, and those are the ones that Radu has played in. So I can't talk about the ability of Radu, but
so I was just laughing at the comment there.
Yeah, no.
Who was that, Mark?
Mark Cole.
I'll
tell you what,
yeah.
and to be fair, to be fair to Mark, Steve, he comes out with some really, really good reviews of games and moments.
No, I totally agree. I was more sort of laughing at the fact that who is that guy he's talking about there?
Yeah,
because you wouldn't even know he's at our club, would you? Can't even get a look in at any sort of time. But I mean, we don't seem to be very confident in our first couple of goalkeepers. So he's there. Is he not worth a risk? He can't. I mean. The only problem if you take Neto out of it, you're then taking our captain out of it. But there's a different conversation there of whether, then you've got to give the captaincy to somebody else. What does that then send as a message? There's lots of ramifications there.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not pleased at the moment with Neto as a captain. I just whatever's working last season, fair enough. But this season, no, I'm sorry. He's got 3 yellow cards already, none of which have been for a tackle or a foul. It's every single one of them has been gobbing off the referee. Yeah. And that's pathetic. That is absolutely pathetic from a 30-year-old experienced goalkeeper. He's 30, early 30s. Whatever, early 30s, late 20s. He's got enough experience as a professional. He's played for some of the biggest clubs in the world. He should not be getting yellow cards like that. And as the captain, you are allowed to speak to the referee. You are the one that's meant to go up to talk to the referee on behalf of the team. And if you can't shut up and you keep talking yourself into the book, you don't deserve the captain's armband. Having said that, can you give it to Adam Smith? Well, he's not playing enough. Who else is legitimately going to take the captain's armband?
Just a thought,
because it didn't work for Kelly.
Just a thought, because he's done it at youth level and won a tournament. Lewis Cook,
yeah, he'd be the only other one. He'd the only one that I think shows real leadership on the pitch, apart from maybe Dom Solanke, but that's more so in his effort rather than necessarily his.
But we're
his
not
natural...
littered. We're not littered with candidates. Let's put it that way. I mean, we've been saying this, and a lot of people have picked up on this. There's no leaders on that pitch.
No.
When things started going against us on the weekend, that you were looking for a voice, someone to G the lads up, and it certainly didn't come from Neto, and it didn't seem to be coming from anybody.
And that's actually something that, if he gets fit, as much as I do rate Zabani as a talent, it was brought up earlier by Leslie.
Chris Mepham, yeah.
I think Chris Mepham should come into that back line, because there's clearly not, unless there's nothing against Zabani, and certainly nothing against his mistake. Zabani's ability to carry the ball past his man and break a press is incredibly useful as a tool to bring the ball up the pitch. And I have no blame at all attached to his slip for the first goal. It is a pure comedy of errors, unfortunately, in terms of just, it's a slip, it's an accident. Billing can't make up for it, and then Cook stands in the way of Neto's eye line, so that Neto then has to shift to the wrong side, and he leaves the middle of the goal open for Garner. But Mepham will show some leadership, even if he's not. And Mepham, even if he isn't the most vocal I've seen him shout about on the pitch, he's got the experience and he's no nonsense. And I think that you need someone to instill some sense of control into that defence, because Adam Smith can't do it from right back. He's complaining too much about what we'll get onto the third goal. He's complaining too much about decisions that go against him to really have too much of an impact. And Kirkes needs some support over on that left-hand side. As much as I don't think Mepham should play at left centre back, you need someone other than the goalkeeper to show some experience in that back line. And I think Mepham could be a solution. He has been injured, and
he's fit enough to go away with Wales, isn't he?
It's up in the air whether he'll feature, but Mepham is an option. I really think he should be looked at as a bit of an option.
I know you want to talk about that third goal, John, but it was 3-0 to Everton, and I do want to get stuck into some deeper conversations about where we are right now going into the international break. Let's have a look, though, at the Premier League table after the weekend. Sheffield United 20th without a win. AFC Bournemouth 19th without a win. Burnley 18th, and Luton just outside that dotted line on 17th, and Everton now 16th on 7 points. Coming back to the chat, if I want to find it, is Samuel McNeil, I think, who said, anyone think Andoni is under pressure? It's only 7 games in, but it's worrying in my opinion. And we spoke about this on the last episode, didn't we, guys? And we said that these are winnable games now. This is the month we were targeting to try and get points. This is where we're going to judge Andoni. I'm backing Andoni still. I have been since day one. I've liked the vision. I know what Bill Foley's trying to achieve. We're trying to replicate other models, and I'm not checking out yet. Far from it. I'm not checking out yet. But I did say this on my social media platforms as well. As much as I'm backing Andoni Iraola, I'm going to criticise him when, for me, he's making basic errors. And we spoke about this as well, didn't we, on the last episode, about what sort of team we wanted to see. Let's go to that lineup then, Steve, because I said we know what Everton are going to do. We knew what Sean Dyche was going to do. He was going to make this a battle in the field. He was going to make it physical. You talked about Lewis Cook potentially being a leader and a new captain. I am worried about Lewis Cook. I know the lineup shows Ryan Christie alongside Lewis Cook. For me, it's probably not like that. Irregardless, we needed Joe Rothwell in there. We needed an extra player that could be alongside Lewis Cook, drive the team up the pitch. But again, you're picking players that are not delivering numbers. Ryan Christie. You're picking a player bang out of form in Dango Utara. David Brooks is someone that's clearly ready for it. Was very, very good in pre-season. Can't get a look in. Semenyo, when we were actually scoring goals on the counter, can't get a look in. I am backing Andoni Iraola, but he doesn't help me when he makes decisions that I think are really poor.
Yeah, and I can't really defend him on some of those points you've made there, because you're right. I mean, for as much as Ryan Christie's got all the endeavour in the world, the best engine in the team, he'll run 3 weeks solidly for you if you asked him to. Like you say, he doesn't back it up with any numbers. It's Dango. I don't really want to even go into Dango because I just might I might say something I don't really want to say. but he's quite clearly struggling with confidence, form, whatever you want to say it is. So I just think take the guy out of the firing line, because it wasn't pretty on Saturday for Dango. I don't know. It is a caveat to everything with Iriola. I mean, we want to see this brand of football that we've been sold the dream of. Yes, we've brought in some great players, albeit he's not being dealt the best hand himself. He's still not got his assistant, which I still think's mental. I don't know what the representatives of the club are doing to rectify that. Whether there's something we just don't know about, whether there's a hold up that the club can't do anything about. I don't know, but it just seems strange that situation still here. Because a poor guy's come over from Spain, brand new environment, and he's on his own, literally. I mean, I've seen some things where I think to myself, did I just see that? Because I spoke about it the other week when I said it looked like him and Elphick weren't gelling. They were arguing about something. I saw it on the weekend where there's disagreements with players on the pitch. You could see it. You could actually see it. He's not. The injuries we've had, again, another sort of blow he's been dealt. We talk about captains. Well, we've got the captain of a national teams on an injury table. We don't know how he's going to fit into our team, but we think he's going to be that solution to the DM problem. And Tyler Adams, I'm talking about, obviously, but he's captain of his national side, so maybe he could be a leader. We just haven't got on the pitch at the moment. So it's difficult, but like you say, when he's making these decisions, and he doesn't seem to, there doesn't seem to be any partnerships being formed. He's trying different pegs in different holes every week. I don't know. It's almost like he's I don't know, just rolling the dice every week, trying to see what works and what doesn't. And maybe we just need to give it a bit more time. But we all know, in the current state of the Premier League, what Premier League owners are like, typically, you don't necessarily get the time you want. And if he doesn't start getting some points on the board pretty soon, because the next two games, home games against some of the teams we're in and around, or should be in and around. I fear for him, and it's difficult to argue with some of the points that people have been making about team selections, tactics. I mean, if it were me, I wouldn't necessarily rip up what he's doing, because we want to see stuff that we have, more exciting football. But there has to be some sort of, you can't just ignore the defensive side of the game, which is for me criminal. There has to be some sort of structure, some sort of, let's not just all bomb on forward. I was watching the back of the net, sorry to bring this up, but the back of the net one, Tom made a good point about when we attack, it seems like Dom's isolated and we've got no one around him. But yet when the opposition attack, our defence look lost and there's no one helping them. So where are all these players? Where's our team? It just I don't know. The eye test isn't good at the moment, and I'm sure the stats aren't either, John. So
no,
I don't really know what to do with him.
Samuel's back in, lose these next two, and I can see him going, but God only knows what Foley is going to do next. Wing says he can't be judged by that sequence of fixtures and two key players centre of the field injured too. And look, as I said, I'm still Iriola in, John. I mean, I'm watching a guy in his presser, in his post-match interviews. He's watching the same game as me. I'm not listening to a guy that seems like he's watching a different game, like we got a few times last season. He's seeing the stuff. So then I think, well, going into the next game, he's probably not going to pick Dango. Everyone can see that he's out of form. He's probably going to put an extra body in midfield. But then an hour before kickoff, what are you doing? What are you doing, Andoni? Come on. We want this to work. We know that Foley has this dream of beautiful football, attacking football. Look, John, I didn't expect us to keep many clean sheets. I thought we'd flood goals, but I thought we'd score loads as well. And at the moment, we're not scoring. So it looks worse because we're not even getting on the score sheet right now. We're still there. These are two massive games. I even feel like I want to give them till Christmas. But I've got to see something in the next two. And it has to start with a lineup that looks like it's going to do something on the pitch. And I do want Iriola ball. But if you've got to adapt a little bit and you're not ready for it yet, because Tyler Adams isn't fit, and Alex Scott isn't fit. You've got to adapt a little bit as well. These players might be struggling to adapt, but I feel Iraola's got to do it as well. I don't want him to rip up the rule book, like we said last week. Just slight tweaks, make us harder to beat a little bit, and let's get a little bit more offensive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound too negative, but the issue I had against Everton was just like I just couldn't see where we were at, what the plan was. Like we've been sold a plan, and I think that. I mean, heck, I did. If you go back on this channel, I did a video saying what should you expect from Iraola ball, and I talked about our pressing, but also I talked about the patterns of play going forward, what you could expect to see in terms of when we've got the ball in the opposition third, when we get to that point, what kind of attacks could you see? How is Iraola planning on getting the ball in the back of the net? And one of the main ones was having your number 10 push to whichever side the ball is on, having the fullback overlap and creating an overload where you have your attacking midfielder and your two wide players combining in triangles to create an opportunity to cross the ball. And that's when you have another midfielder, your attacker, and at least the winger, if not the fullback as well, from the other side of the pitch, flood into the box to try and get anything that ends up going into the box from crosses. But there's no overlapping whatsoever from any fullbacks, doesn't matter which ones he picks. Even when the Kirkus flies forward, he mostly underlaps, but if he doesn't underlap and he overlaps, he never gets the ball from the player that's playing with him because either Dango's lost the ball or Cliver just forgets that he exists. And in the game against Everton, the issue was, even if you were to say, like, once we've got the ball up into the final third, we can create whatever patterns of play you want, how are we going to get it there? Because I couldn't see what the plan was to get the ball into the final third in the first place anyway. Lewis Cook ends up being the deepest player for the first goal. He came in between the two centre-backs very frequently during that game, as if to assist with build-up. But then Billing was really deep as well. So you end up with this massive space in the middle of the park where you want Cook and Billing to be, but they're not there. Christie's still playing quite high. The fullbacks are pushed forward, but they're wide. The wingers are wide, and Billing is up again, and Solanke is up against the front man. So you've got no way to get from back to front because there's no people in the middle to produce the transition. So how are you going to get the ball forward? And we played long ball a hell of a lot. What Steve mentioned early on, Ouattara did actually manage to get Ashley Young to get a yellow card in about the fifth or sixth minute. You've got the right back, the notoriously sprightly Ashley Young, is got a yellow card against probably our most physically gifted player. As much as his technical ability is on roughly non-league level at the moment, he is probably our most physically gifted player. So what did we do? We kept putting long balls over to him, despite the fact that the one time we didn't, we gave it to him short and allowed him to turn. That's when Ashley Young got the yellow card. I just don't understand why the players just cannot seem to take basic advantage of some of the situations they're in. But then outside of that, I don't get what Andoni Iraola's tactics are to get us forward. Look, I'm a complete novice at this, but there are some basic things that you can appreciate as a watcher of football. And I did not appreciate anything about the way that we set up in that game, really. And we can talk about, maybe we should play Brooks, maybe we should play Semenyo, maybe we should play a bunch of others.
It's irrelevant.
Even when Brooks came on, he barely got the ball, and even when he did, he didn't really get the opportunity to do much with it, although he was helping in creating one of the few chances we did get. When Sinistera came on, he did nothing. And by the fact that you probably wouldn't have heard it because there probably wouldn't be any highlights of Bournemouth's play, but there was a number of chants from Bournemouth fans saying, we want our Jaden back, because they were so fed up with the fact that Sinistera did nothing and felt as though at least Anthony might be able to provide something beyond the odd step over that didn't get him anywhere. That's harsh on Sinistera. I feel as though laying the blame at him for a very poor performance, but he really didn't do much when he came on the pitch. We haven't seen enough from him and most of the wide players, apart from, like I said, Tavernier, I felt was actually something decent. Look, there's a lot of negatives to throw on, and it's very reactive at the moment. I do also want to see Iraola do well. I want to see him be able to actually get the most out of these players. But if he doesn't get anything, and if he gets some points, even if the performance isn't there, if he gets a win in the next 2, then you can say at least there's something to build on. But we need to actually see where this team is going. And from the start of the season against West Ham to where we are now, the team has regressed in terms of its performances. And that is worrying. And if there are legitimate, as Steve has said, he saw, there was possibly strong disagreements between him and Elphick during the Arsenal game. He saw the fact that he was arguing with his players on the pitch. I don't think, personally, I wouldn't read too much into that now, because I do think that players that play on the wings will actively try and ignore their manager as much as possible because they get fed up with him shouting at them so much. And I've heard stories of professional footballers doing that. But if that continues, and if the players are starting to really look like they are actively struggling to be able to implement whatever the system is at all, then there will be legitimate questions about his position as coach. Right now, I don't want him gone. But come back to me in a month, and I might have very well change my tune at that point. We just need to see something, because at the moment there isn't anything really to talk about based on what we've seen so far. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Nope.
You're still on mute.
Am I back?
Yes,
you're back.
I'm back. There's me using the mute on my mic instead of StreamYard. Martin Fieldhouse, I'm still backing the manager, but he needs to put players in their best positions, which is what we're highlighting. And Steve, I don't really want to hide away from it now. I mean, we probably could have spoken about it a few weeks ago, but Andoni is making some silly mistakes, but he has been dealt a harsh hand here. We don't know what say he's had in the recruitment. Look, I'm not going to lie. We've done enough streams. I was quite excited about the transfers we were doing. Starting to review them now. I'm really looking at them thinking half of them potentially are not coming off what expected. Alex Scott, we might see in a few weeks after the international break. Tyler Adams is the big one. We keep going on about Jeff Lerma. Fans keep bringing it up, and we'll keep bringing it up while there's a massive problem in midfield where Jeff solved that problem most weeks. Tyler Adams broke the news. Well, the news was broke that Tyler Adams was going to have a significant time out with a hamstring injury, maybe surgery. We might not even see him this side of Christmas. That would not have been great news for Andoni Iraola. And that's £50 million of players that are yet to make a Premier League appearance. That can't be easy when you're brought in to deliver a style that's not easy to deliver and bring exciting football. That's where I'm still giving Andoni the time.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bad hand for him. But equally, you've got to play the hand you're dealt, and you've got to come up with solutions to problems. And at the minute, we could go through the recruitment and pick apart, the fact that you've got one left back and we bought 68 wingers, and we've hardly seen any of them consistently. Yet the one left back we've got has played every minute of every game, and he's 19, and that's a lot of pressure for a young lad. Same as Zabani, 19. He's 19, isn't he? Something like that. But there's a weight
21, 22
or something. He's very young. Is my point.
He's still very young, yeah.
But very young. So there's a lot of weight on, expectation on these players. They come with big price tags and a lot of reputation of being, the next big thing. And we're just chucking them straight in because we've got no other option. And it'd be great if he had all these players back, but he hasn't. And he's got to find a way as the manager, as the coach, and that's his job. Let's not forget that, to find a solution to all this. I don't, like Jon says, we're novices. We don't, we could sit here and say, oh yeah, just play that guy, it'll be fine, or play this guy in that position, it'd be, make so much difference. But it's down to him to, he sees them every day in training, to pick out these players and find something that works. It's difficult. I'm just feeling disillusioned about the whole thing at the minute, because like we've said previously, we were sold a dream of really attacking style of football that we've not seen anything the likes of before. We're signing some of the bright young talent in European football, and it's just not coming together. By hook or by crook, whoever's to blame, it may be even, it's a combination of everything. We've got new ownership. I'm not the biggest fans of certain people in high positions in the club. Them not maybe doing their job as well as they should be. Andoni maybe not hitting the ground running. Some of the players being injured. There's a lot of moving parts in all of this, and it's really difficult to lay the blame solely at his door. But like you said, when he makes some decisions and you think it doesn't help his cause, and ultimately he will be the guy that bites the bullet in the end of it. He'll take the brunt of this. And I've even seen things already saying I think it was Sevilla looking at sacking their manager and trying to go after him. So I mean, I think it's pivotal in the next. I think it's pivotal we win the next game personally for him, for his sake.
Can I just build on that as well? Steve, as you were mentioned, that you just in terms of like, you're disillusioned at the moment, I think is a really good word for it. What I don't want this come across as is like everything's negative, nothing will ever be good again. This is horrible, because it's not. Okay, it's easy, particularly on the internet, for me to come across as feel as though I'm basically negative about everything, and therefore you have to be positive in return. You have to look at the situation as it is with open eyes. Things are currently not very good. That doesn't mean that they can't get better. And I also don't want Andoni to get the sack. Like I said, come back to me in a month and I might have changed my mind, because you have to reimagine how things are based on newer evidence. But Wing brought up a good point. Like these first 7 or 8 fixtures will not have helped, because you cannot possibly get the team massively onside if you don't have at least 1 or 2 fixtures in there to give you the base of a win to then build upon. That's what, even Parker and Gary O'Neill got wins very early on in their tenures in the Premier League. So things definitely can get better. But there are areas of the team, as Kirk mentioned, £50 million worth of talent that is still injured and has, Adams has got 15 minutes in the cup or whatever it is. That is also partly on Iraola and the recruitment team, because they brought them in when they knew they were injured. So, and reports have come out from Leeds that apparently they were worried that Tyler Adams wouldn't pass his medical because Chelsea they knew that. Well, I mean, I think Chelsea were just waiting for a better player to come along, and they went and picked up 2 of them. But yeah, I just think that right now things look dire. But what I will say is, and also if you want more of me being negative, please do feel free to check me out on Beat the
yes, please.
Minutes. When I'm coming on and I have to take questions from a bunch of other fans from other teams that are also looking at Bournemouth situation and are probably going to say, well, you're down, aren't you? I was like, I don't think we're down. I really don't. It's far too early in the season for that. It's just that it's just not good right now. It's really not. There is light in the tunnel, but that tunnel looks really, really long at the moment. And I'm hoping that 2 weeks will be enough to bring us closer to the end of that tunnel.
But what you can do for Cherries Red Army right now on this video on YouTube is hit the like button and subscribe, because we're going into the final part and we are going to look at those 2 fixtures left in October. They are massive. I wanted a minimum of 6. We need 2 wins at home. So the international break has just started and we will come back on Saturday, the 21st of October for Bournemouth against Gary O'Neill's Wolverhampton Wanderers. And then it will be Bournemouth against Burnley the following week. 2 home games. So we need to focus on this. We will have Cherries in Focus episode 14, likely to probably be next Thursday, Follow our socials, follow us on this YouTube channel. We'll confirm that, but we'll probably lead up to that game with the latest episode, Steve. But a couple of, 10 days, whatever it is now for Andoni. Can he get anyone back fit? I still think it'll be too early for Alex Scott. We know Tyler Adams won't be available to pick, but we've had conversations about mistakes made in that lineup for Everton, not being strong enough, not winning battles, not winning enough duels, making mistakes. You said on the previous episode that we just need to do things better. We got to win the game. We got to show some ambition against Wolves. We know what they're going to do, Steve. We're going ahead here because we're going to talk about this next week. We know what they're going to do. They're going to soak it up. They're going to try and take 100% conversion, one shot on target potentially. Pedro Neto is going to be their main guy. We know what they're going to do. We've got to get 6 points from 6. We've got to start scoring goals.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And what would be nice is if someone other than Dom was doing that. Because at the moment, there's, like I say, about pressure on people. It seems to be Dom or nothing at the moment. And some of these other players need to... I was just thinking when we talk, sorry to harp back to what we were talking about, and sort of laying where the blame lays. The guys on the pitch have to take a certain amount of responsibility and start sort of, showing something, showing a bit more know-how, a bit more... the better decision making, and we know they can play. We saw performances against Liverpool, against Brentford, that showed us that these guys can play together. It's just it's like I said, being better at what they're doing and just this better decision making. Pick themselves up off the floor, dust themselves down. And interestingly, where did the tide turn for us, or start to turn for us last season? Was it Wolves at home?
Wolves away.
Yeah, was that 0-0?
No, it was Wolves at home.
Oh, right, okay.
Because it was Gary O'Neill's first game in charge, and it was a 0-0, and it stopped our losing streak. So maybe that's an omen. I'm clinging on to anything at the moment, and
that, in my opinion.
we do need more than a 0-0. But they're there for the taking. Wolves. I've watched them, and as much as they've got stars like Neto, and I think their goalkeeper's very good on his day. Craig Dawson's an excellent defender. I think he's one of the better ones in the Premier League. Always been consistently good. They can be got at. I mean, I've watched them from afar again because of the Gary O'Neill thing. You don't know whether you just want to see how he gets on. For me, I don't dislike the guy. I wasn't necessarily one of his O'Neill out brigade, but I just want him to keep an eye on them. But Luton, they played Luton. Luton got at them quite a lot, actually. How they beat Man City, I'd never know, because it was unbelievable. They were just peppered the whole game and managed to spawn 2 shots on target. So I think we've got the doors open for us if we want to take advantage of their frailties, because they certainly have got a lot, and we know they should know better than anyone what sort of style Gary O'Neill's going to bring to the table. So yeah, I mean, it's a very winnable game, and I think a bit of luck and just a bit of raise of confidence, maybe a couple of better decisions made by Areola and on personnel on the pitch, and it could be an easy 3 points.
Yeah, John, I don't want to go into the Wolves preview because that will be on the next episode, but I am seeing from Wolves what I saw a lot last season, and they are picking up points because we did pick up points, but it's more than that for me. It's more than that. Morgan says, John, that it's his birthday when we play Wolves, so 3 points would make it a very, very good birthday for him. Morgan also comes back earlier in the chat to say Brooks can add goals, and there is lots for Andoni to think about in the next 10 days, whatever it is, until we step on that pitch at Dean Court, John. I want a player, right? If players are making mistakes, or collectively we're breaking down when we're trying to transition and make passes, I need someone to take the game by the scruff of the neck. If now you come back to leaders, someone is going to grab it, drive the team on. Maybe that is David Brooks. He is so hungry for this. David Brooks has had some good games, some good moments. He struggled in the Carabao Cup against Stoke, but he scores goals. He's got technical ability. I know you spoke about that pace in transition, there's a few players that I just want to see in the starting lineup against Wolves, because I just want us to win more battles and I want us to hurt football teams.
Yeah. Just to come back on Steve, Wolves actually only had one shot on target against City and scored 2 goals.
Yeah, of course they did. It was an own goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's sort of where their luck finally got them back in that game. But yeah, I mean, and they got Wolves have also got Lamina sent off in towards the end of the Liverpool.
And they're missing Semedo as well.
Who? Sorry,
they're missing Semedo, I believe, as well, because he's picked up 5 yellows.
Oh, that's good. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, we know what Wolves are going to do. And the thing is that Iraola has very clearly favoured physically gifted wingers that have a lot of pace and strength to do whatever they haven't been doing in the recent several games. But against Wolves at home, you know they're just going to sit back. So this would be, if there was ever a game where you can ignore whatever physical talents you want from your wingers and just load your attack with technically gifted players, because you're going to have to play through a defense, this would be the one. So you'd probably, even if you wanted to keep Christie, you could put him on the right, you could put David Brooks in the middle, and I don't know, you could put Semenyo on the left to power through the defense, or start Sinistera, give him an opportunity from the start. But yeah, against Wolves, everything will be on us to be the one that is aggressive in the game. So this will be good 2 weeks of planning. What does Iraola do? What is his strategy when it's not a big team that we can press high and hope to win the ball against? It is, we start with the ball. What do we do to get it from our box to their box and put pressure on them? And, you know, this will be a very, very good measuring yardstick for what Iraola's attacking plan is when we are meant to be the dominant side, because we haven't seen that very much so far. We saw it at West Ham to an extent. Only really worked when Semenyo came on. We saw it completely fail against Everton. And apart from that, we haven't seen it at all this season. We saw it a bit in pre-season. It looked good, but that hasn't carried through. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But fingers crossed, 2 weeks of training up will with most of the squad will give him the opportunity to coach something into the players.
Do you know what I'd be working on in those 2 weeks is getting the confidence off the floor. I mean, by whatever it means he has to do it, is just putting an arm around all these players and saying, "Come on, lads, you're better than that. Individually, collectively, you know what you can do." You know, say what you want about Gary O'Neill, but and previous managers we've had, but we always seem to have had a good unity off the pitch. And there's stuff I'm seeing now where I'm not saying it is a bad dressing room, but it doesn't. I don't see those bonds there anymore. There's a lot of new players, a lot of youth, no big vocal personalities, bar Neto's, I suppose. You know, what is that dressing room like? To me, it just the dropped heads that I was seeing on Saturday. Just to me, it needs someone to get in there and gee these lads up.
Totally agree, Steve. We also put in the chat, I feel like in this break, Andoni with that chance of heart to heart with the players as individuals and as a group, and I think we'll be victorious in the next 2 games.
Maybe be a bit savvy as well and take a couple of them out of the firing line. You know, like Dango, for example, he just doesn't seem to be coming off for him. Maybe give Milos a break. I know we haven't got an actual replacement for him, but you know, he looked so downtrodden the other day, and even Zavani. Maybe Meps hopefully will be fit and come back and can slot in for a bit of experience.
We are going to wrap up this episode then. It's been great to join you live and interactive on YouTube. Do hit the like button. Matthew, finally in the chat, one of the final comments coming through here does say that he does fear for Andoni if he doesn't get 4 to 6 points in the next 2 games. We'll have to see where we are at the end of October. I'm still there. I'm still with Andoni. Just need to see some better lineup picks. And I just want to see some of this football we were seeing earlier on in spells. We didn't do it for long spells, but we did have moments, didn't we? John, you're going to head off now to Boo, Forest Fan TV. No, they're good guys, actually. They're good guys. John's heading off right now on YouTube to beat the drop on Forest Fan TV. I haven't got a link in the description. But
Good luck, John.
If you want to continue listening to John, stay with us, John, while we do our outro. But if you want to continue listening to John, you can head over there in just a moment. Steve, international break. Do give us a little summary. There is still hope. You're going to be at Dean Court when we take on Wolves. We'll have content coming on the channel, and we're still going to have everything crossed that this does work out.
Well, yeah, of course we are. I mean, look, we're just going through a bad moment, and unfortunately, it's come at a time when we were so excited about it all. Nothing seems to be going right for us, and this is, like I said, we know what this team can do. We've seen what most of these players can do last season with a few new additions, who just need to gel a bit more. And hopefully this couple of weeks, he can get a bit of time with them, work some stuff out, and come back a better proposition against Wolves. And don't worry about it. Be 3 points in the bag. I'll tell you what, the landscape. Stop. Yeah, but shut up. The landscape will change so much on social media and all the rest of it if we can just get that monkey off the back. And we all know, we're quite capable of beating Wolves. Absolutely are.
Totally. Just need that win, and I think we'll go from strength to strength. Injured players will come back. Alex Scott will be amazing. It can end up being a completely different view and story in about 3 months' time. John, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your week. Good luck on Beat the Drop. Don't take too much hassle from them.
Yeah, cheers. Speak to you later.
Steve, have a good international break. Might see you back here for episode 14 as we do a proper preview of Wolves. Have a good week.
I might be back for episode 15 if we get beat by Wolves, because then I'll look a bit daft, don't I? Yeah, see you all later.
Thank you to the fans that's joined us live and interactive on YouTube. Do smash the like button. If you've watched this back on replay, do get your thoughts in the comments. If you've listened to this on the podcast, thank you very much. But have a good international break if you can. And let's get behind the boys next week. And you never know. Things have to turn at some point, and Donny can still be the man. Until the next one, we'll see you very, very soon. Up the cherries.
Up the cherries.